因为最新的影片还在赶工中，这次的比较难剪一点，所以在这段时间，我怕大家太想我，
不要瞎掰好吗？
所以先跟各位分享一些高价值的重要投资理财观念，里面有很多都是观众常常问的，一次帮大家厘清。但这次我要先介绍一位重量级人物，刚好他在今年7月的一次访谈里面讨论到很多重要的投资细节，我觉得对各位会很有帮助。这边直接帮各位翻译好了，因为用耳机当麦克风的关系，访谈的收音不是很好，有些地方我也是听得不是很清楚，如果哪边翻得不太好，还请见谅。然后我还会另外针对每一个主题再帮各位解说，所以不用怕听不懂。如果觉得我解释得很烂，也欢迎在下方留言讨论。在开始之前，先稍微介绍一下这位大人物。William Bernstein 原本是位神经科的医生，现在是资产管理公司 EFA 的创办人，写过超多本好书，也有翻译成中文版，通通都是我的最爱。他在2017年也曾荣获 CFA 学会的一份大奖，这个奖项有很多大人物也曾经被颁发过，像是约翰伯格、席勒，主要是颁发给那些在金融投资领域进行了大量而且有价值研究的人。好，废话不多说，让我们直接开始吧。
Should young investors be considering using leverage?
Well, the theory also says that in order to lose weight, you have to eat less and exercise more. And that's about the same way that I feel about leveraged portfolios for young people. I don't think there are too many people in this quadrant of the galaxy who are able to tolerate a leveraged stock portfolio. It looks good on paper. If you have a PhD in economics from Yale, it looks good. But for real people in the real world, it doesn't work so well.
这边提到的杠杆是指的像我们会跟银行借房贷拿去投资，不是投资什么正二这种杠杆型 ETF 哦。其实关于贷款投资有好几篇很专业的学术研究，我也有看过。其实对年轻人正在累积资产是有利的，但现实中人总是没有那么理性，每个人家庭、工作状况、财务背景都不太一样，真的不能一概而论。所以在未来充满不确定性的情况下，还是尽量不要贷款投资比较好，尤其是在负债又刚好遇到股市大跌时，双重压力之下，很容易就做错投资决策了。
Okay, so let's jump into a portfolio question. Do you still think that it's reasonable to expect return premiums from small cap and value stocks?
If you believe that there is both a behavioral and a theoretical component to the small and value premiums, that is, small and value stocks are riskier, therefore they should have higher long-term returns, then I think that at least some of the premium is still there. If, on the other hand, it's all behavioral, then with luck, people have learned about that and have arbitraged that away. Or I wouldn't say with luck. If that happens, it'll get arbitraged away. I don't think it's going to be as large to the extent that I believe that some of it is still due to risk. I think that it's still there, and I think we've seen the evidence for that. Just during the past 5 or 10 years. If you're a value investor, you've been very discouraged by the past 5 or 10 years, and a lot of people have given up on it. And a lot of people have said, value is dead. Whenever I hear from anybody that a certain approach is dead or a certain asset allocation, a certain asset class is dead, I perk up my ears because that means that all of the weak hands have sold out of it. And I think that's what's happening with value now. I do think the answer to your question is at least some of the value and small premium are still there. And the main reason why I believe it is because the valuations now of small and value stocks relative to the market are much more attractive than they were 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the valuations are unreal. I mean, getting to historic levels in terms of the spread in valuation between value and growth, particularly small cap value. Now, on that topic, and it kind of ties into the leverage question, I think your answer might be similar, but let's see. One of the questions we get a lot, because we talk about the data around small cap and value and the theory around small cap and value, And this leads people to think, well, why don't I just build a portfolio of 100% small cap value stocks? How would you answer that question?
Well, the reason why you shouldn't do that is for periods of 10 and 20 years and perhaps more, that can fail. You don't want to take that kind of risk just for a little boost of return. If anyone should heavily weight towards small in value, it should be a young person in the accumulation phase. All right, for the same reason that I talked about 10 minutes or 15 minutes or so ago, which is that if they do happen to have a long period of very low returns, then it's good to be accumulating them. So if you're a 20 or a 30 or a 35 or even a 40-year-old saver, it might make sense to heavily tilt towards small in value. I don't think that people much over the age of 35 or 40 should do that very, very aggressively.
关于到底要不要在全市场的投资组合当中，另外加入小型股和价值股，也就是所谓的 value tilt， 这个正好是我下一部影片的主题。不过我的看法会跟 Bernstein 的稍微有点不太一样。我大概整理了快30篇的研究，然后把它转换成人类的语言，浓缩成一部20多分钟的影片，告诉大家从投资理论、资产配置到标的的分析，通通都有。绝对比你看过的任何一本书跟文章都还详细，含金量绝对超高，再敬请期待了。
That's one of my favorite lines, and I'm going to misquote you, but from Rational Expectations, which is the book of yours that I've read most recently, you said something along the lines of young investors should be praying for long extended bear markets.
Yeah, of course. And that gets to a theoretical issue called return sequence. Which is that if you are in the accumulation phase of your investing career, you're saving periodically, then you should get down on your knees and pray, as I wrote, for awful returns, awful bear markets, great volatility, so you can accumulate shares at low prices. On the other hand, if you're a geezer like me, you don't want to see bad returns right off the bat. You want to see good returns right off the bat. So you can build up your nest egg a little more, so when the bad times come, you've got plenty of cushion. So how risky stocks are depends on where in your investing life cycle you are.
这个观念我在这部影片也有提到过，也就是所谓 sequence risk， 报酬好坏的先后顺序，会对你退休后的生活有严重的影响。出生和退休的时间点决定了这个风险。影片中我也有提到该怎么处理这个风险。会牵涉到所谓 duration 的问题，建议各位可以好好看一下影片。所以，如果在年轻正在累积资产时，最好就祈求个上天来一个股市大跌、超长熊市，这样才能顺利累积资产啊。但现实中大家却刚好相反，哇，股市一直涨，好高兴哦。对年轻人来说其实不对，但如果是快退休或者刚退休，如果这时候进入牛市，你就要爽翻天了。另外，我有写过一篇文章，退休后的第一个10年的报酬最重要，退休金到底够不够，就看这个10年了。连结放到下方。
What do you think about dollar cost averaging, which is just systematically deploying cash, versus the concept of value cost averaging?
Well, let's get one thing out of the way, which is that if you have a lump sum to invest, 80 to 90% of the time, you're better off doing the lump sum as opposed to a periodic approach. Now, the periodic approach has a psychological advantage, and it's certainly suboptimal from a return point of view, but it just stands to reason that lump summing does better than either value averaging or dollar cost averaging because you've got more dollars in the market. Over time, more dollar years in the market, if you will. Now, do I think that value averaging is better than dollar cost averaging? Yes, I do, but it's the same sort of phenomenon, which is that with value averaging, you're very likely to have fewer dollar years in the market. Okay, but you can get very lucky with value averaging. Really lucky with value averaging. If you start value averaging and then 3 or 4 years into the process, you have a real market decline, then you wind up putting a great bulk of your assets in at those very low prices. So it can work out both ways, but the rewards of value averaging, if you're at all fortunate, can be very high, and that's why I favor it over dollar cost averaging.
这个问题就是大家最爱问的，问到爆炸的那种。我每次都回答单笔就对了，但大家都不太相信。我看过很多研究背后的计算过程，不管是不同国家的股市，还是股债怎么搭配，只要是长期投资，都是单笔的胜率最高。其实真的不难理解，从风险定价的层面来想，一次让越多的钱投入市场，承担市场风险，预期报酬也一定越高。所以我通常会建议大家单笔投入，但是真的会担心高点，不敢单笔，那就分批进场。然后有些观众会叫我帮他做决定，我不是财务顾问啊，我不能帮各位做决定，我只能提供一些可行的选项，让各位做选择，像是可以单笔，会怕就分批，或者折中，债券用单笔，股票用定期定值。因为从短期往回看，其实不一定，如果单笔输了，这时候就会产生后悔的情绪，这样我就要为你的情绪负责，所以我才会说自己要学会为自己的投资决策负责，承担结果，努力学习，纠正不理性的投资行为，慢慢迈向成功理财。其实大家来问我问题，我都会回答，因为在思考的过程中，我也会学到东西啊。但我还是不能帮各位做决定，我只能提供你们一些选项，让你们做抉择。最后可能会有人想问，定期定值是什么？跟定期定额差在哪？建议可以直接看这本书，没有比这更详细的了。我也看过大概2遍左右，里面有很完整的数学计算和怎么设定自己的定期定值路径。书中也有说明定期定值最大的缺点是什么，然后怎么克服。很棒的一本书，推荐给大家。
How do you define success in your life?
Oh, that's easy. When you get to my age and your kids still want to spend time with you, then you're a success.
各位怎么定义成功的人生呢？在下方留言告诉我。另外，帮他的新书打个广告，明年2月底会出版，主要是探讨群众效应。当人们一窝蜂追求某项事物，群体狂热的时候，到底会发生什么事情？尤其是在投资方面，通常会造成金融市场的严重崩溃。另外，这本书也会讨论市场为什么会形成泡沫。然后，它的网站也有很多关于 MPT 现代投资组合理论和资产配置的观念，背后的数学模型原理都讲得很详细，连结放到下方。我们下部影片见。